Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
Getting the last laugh with the HR manager. This is the story of how I got petty revenge using malicious compliance. My last job was as a warehouse manager with a family business that I had worked with for well over 10 years. When I started, it was in a small building with a staff of less than 10 people. By the time I left, it had grown into an international pharmaceutical company that employed hundreds. During its tremendous growth, there came a time when someone was employed as a HR manager. They seemed nice and friendly to the people who were above them on the corporate ladder, but rude and dismissive to anyone who they perceived as beneath them. As a fellow manager in a different branch of the organization, I did not answer directly to them, and as long as I did not violate the newly implemented HR policy, they had no authority over me. This led to us pretty much just ignoring each other. I watched from the sidelines as they would create unnecessary issues just to exert their authority as HR manager. After a few months, management decided to also put them in charge of occupational health and safety. They instantly become unbearable. Attempts were made to implement policies that interfered with the smooth flow of my department. Safety audits had previously been conducted once a month with any incidents reported as they occurred. I was now instructed to conduct an audit every single day and to document any issues complete with photographs. The process became tedious and intrusive and was total overkill. They expected everything to be reported. For example, one day every wooden pallet had to be inspected for splinters. We had 2,000 pallets on site and purchasing would buy the cheapest pallets they could find. They all had splinters. This led to a breakdown in our work relationship to the point where we communicated mainly through email. As to come into the warehouse, they would have to change from office attire into appropriate safety wear. I will admit that in these communications there were times when I would be blunt and direct. No time was wasted on pleasantries, but I was never rude or discourteous. One day the operations manager took me aside and informed me that a complaint had been made against me by the HR manager. I was accused of having an unprofessional tone to my emails and that this bordered on bullying in the workplace. Next day I attended a meeting with the operations manager and the CEO of the company. Because HR manager made the complaint, they couldn't participate. In the meeting they put forth the accusations. I denied it all and asked for proof, specifically which emails were out of line. They had not prepared anything, and we agreed to adjourn to the next day when they had the evidence required. It actually took a week before we could reconvene. They had gone through over 10 years of emails. Everything I had ever sent to anyone using company email. They were unable to present a single email that supported the claims against me. The whole thing was instantly dismissed. I received an apology from the CEO and an assurance that they had no choice but to investigate once the complaint had been made. Cue petty revenge through malicious compliance. There was an alleyway next to the warehouse entrance created by the back wall of the neighboring building, and it was covered in graffiti. One of the tags on the building was a large fist with the middle finger extended, and underneath was written "Duck You." I took numerous photos and attached them to the daily audit and sent them to the HR manager, asking them to look at pictures and let me know if they wanted me to paint over the offensive material. I never did hear back from them about it. Don't want to pay a union driver the extra hours of UPS. This happened years ago. I worked at a UPS. It was ran by a manager who was very quick in your orientation to let you know he was a former commander in Vietnam, and he ran this office just like he ran his troops in Vietnam. I was brought up to respect the military and didn't have any problem when I first heard this. The more time that went on, I felt sorry for the troops if he truly commanded any in Vietnam. It would be dead time in between when trucks needed to be unloaded, and we would commonly just stand around and talk, twiddling our thumbs when we were supposed to be cleaning. He would hide behind closed doors, sweating his butt off, looking out small metal holes for hours at a time to try to catch us like this. I couldn't help but just see how pointless this had to be as a manager's time to sit sweating for hours so you could catch employees taking a break in between a truck after really busting their butt for hours. The union covered all workers whether you joined the union or not. I didn't join, but I still enjoyed the benefits of the union, which included overtime if you worked more than 4 hours in the day if you are part-time. There were also set rules such as if there was an overnight package delivery that was missed, and a driver had to drive it to the airport, so the package would not be late, the manager had to pick one of the union employees to get that route. Due to the nature of them being part-time and normally just unloading boxes, it meant that they would be paid at a different driver rate over time, so one trip could get a nice boost of pay from one trip to the airport. This manager didn't like that and would commonly take these trips himself, when he was supposed to let another driver that was union take these trips. Most of our overtime would come from the people who knew how to drive standards, because at that point you will automatically volunteer to stay late after your shift to park these trucks for the next shift. Cue malicious compliance. Anytime the manager stole these driving routes, everyone parking the trucks would go to turtle speed, and a job that would normally take 10 to 20 minutes would suddenly take about an hour. So, once he was getting back, everyone would be finished up, as the trip to the airport and back took about an hour. One time you must have had a side errand or something come up. I never found out why, but instead of 1 hour the trip took about 3 hours. I just remember 5 or 6 young guys and a couple old guys walking around this lot, pretending to look at our paper that showed where our trucks were and looking around dumbfounded as we turn a 10-minute job into a 3-hour one. When he got back and saw us still in the lot, he just started screaming, and everyone's trucks were parked within about 3 minutes, and we got the hell out of there. There wasn't much he could do to punish us, since he was breaking the rules, and he already did everything he could to make our life there as tough as possible. That was the easiest 3 hours of overtime pay of my life, for sure, and my favorite military acronym is CIA background. Many thousands of years ago, before 9/11, and all the implemented security that went with that, I joined the local National Guard unit. After basic training and schooling in my field, I returned to my local base. In our school program, we were told that many times the higher-ranking soldiers would mess with us to see if we would do what they say. Now, not following a direct order is simply not done, and making large mistakes is also just not done. It was suggested that anytime we were told to do something that was part of our job, we should write down what we were told, who told us. Since everyone had the courtesy to wear their last names sewn to their uniform, this was easy enough, and what time and date we were told this. Now, I was raised in a fundamentalist religious cult, and as a rebellious, thinking female, I had long ago perfected the ability to look completely innocent, and yet not crumble under the pressure of being admonished or even berated. On the story. On my first day of duty after my schooling was finished, I started working in the police section of the base. I was told what was needed in order to process giving out car identification stickers and who got what color base identification strip based on their rank. I dutifully wrote all this out. Then, after my trainer, E3, moved on to help someone else with something, another service member came over and asked me what the E3 had told me. This service member was an E5 and worked on base full-time doing what I was assigned on that weekend. The E5 said that the E3 had the colors wrong as they had just changed with the new presidential administration coming in, and gave me the correct order. They left, and I dutifully wrote down what was said, who said it, and what time. The E5 had me giving lower enlisted members colors that went to commissioned officers. Soldiers at the gate must salute and allow them on base, no questions asked. Giving commissioned officers colors that went to the lower enlisted members. Soldiers at the gate stop them, ask where they are going and why. That entire Saturday I did as I was told by the E5 and was super smiley every time I gave out the requested stickers. I don't remember the exact number of stickers given out, but it was well in excess of 50. On Sunday, it all blew up. There were around 2,000 cars that went through the gate every morning of weekend duty, all needing to be in at 7:00 to be on time. The soldiers at the gate were saluting soldiers that underranked them and weren't saluting officers and were stopping them because of the sticker color. At 7:15-ish, I was called into the office of the major, CO, for the police section. Along with him was the non-commissioned officer and CO of the section and my E3 trainer. I took my trusty steno pad and pen and went in. The trainer was asked what they had trained me to do, and they answered. Then the NCO, on a typical power trip, started yelling at me over making decisions instead of taking orders. After the NCO finished, the CO asked if I had made a decision instead of following orders. At that point, I then pulled out my steno pad and read off that at 9:30 on Saturday date, E5 instructed me to hand out stickers in this order, as the colors had changed due to the new presidential administration. The NCO started screaming again about taking direct orders and not making decisions. After they finished their tirade, I asked the E3 if the E5 was in my chain of command. The E3 stated that they were. At that point, the CO thanked us, asked for us to get him a copy of all sticker numbers and base identification stickers given out, and told us to go to the cafeteria and get some coffee in Danish until he called for us. When we returned, the CO and E5 were nowhere to be seen in the office, and so the E3 and I went about our jobs. As I was leaving the base to eat with some friends, I saw the NCO and E5 scraping off the stickers I had handed out while the CO stood there watching. Nothing was ever said to E3 or I about the incident again. Of course, being a military institution and having humans in the roles of the military, there were several. Lead supervisor gets mad that coworker and I used our paid break to eat. This happened just now. This isn't that exciting compared to other posts, but here we go. I work in a lab that employs a lot of people nationwide. Kind of irrelevant, but whatever. We get a lot of cases from doctors and hospitals all across the country every day to run tests they order. Because of the sheer amount of cases we get daily, we have a lot of QC that needs to be done by the end of the week. And if it doesn't get done by Saturday night, we have to do a rotation every week to finish it. My actual supervisor said we have to stay 4 to 6 hours or until everything is done. There's this cynical old woman who works in my department. She's a massive pain in our butt and sends endless amounts of emails a day about fixing things that aren't broken, doing something wrong even though we follow her directions, all while she's doing none of her own work. She also happens to be the lead of our department, even though she never sees any of us because she's in the back office, not in the actual lab. She works third shift. Today is my rotation. It just so happens to be my birthday weekend. My birthday was Friday, and my coworker who I'm doing the rotation with brought breakfast burritos for the two of us. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of work last week, and there was minimal QC to do. After we stayed for an hour and were 80% done with our work, we took a paid 15-minute break. 16 minutes later, we come back into the lab, and she starts yelling at us because we went over our time, and she leaves the lab and calls our manager, who basically said it doesn't matter since we're still getting the work done. Old woman comes back and says that we can't leave until the work is done, even though she'll be leaving in about an hour. Okay then. We finish all of our work about 10 minutes after we came back from break, but since we're still on the clock, we're deciding to stay for the entire 6 hours doing mindless work, cleaning already sanitized stations, deleting emails, dusting keyboards, changing pens, etc., which will cost the company about $300 more because of OT pay on our paychecks. All because we were 1 minute over. Like I said, this might not be as exciting as other posts on here, but this is the first time this overworked and underpaid on idle threats can bite you in the arse. I worked at a roadhouse many years ago, also employed as a casual employee. A casual employee is just that and has no real job security. One big point is that a casual can be dismissed without notice and the employer does not have to pay any penalty. Likewise, a casual can quit without notice. Note that this was back in the late 80s. Workers' rights have improved a fair bit since then. So although I generally liked my job and usually got along well with the owner, Ray, we did butt heads occasionally. Now, my role was the night shift guy, and over time, I became the night shift manager. I was also essentially the only person willing to work constant night shift. On my days off, one of the day casual guys would fill in for a couple of nights, only and no more. If I ever took holidays, Ray had to do the nights, which he hated. One day Ray and I had an argument over something, and he decided to lay down the law, as he put it, and reminded me that I am a casual and can be fired without notice. My response? Fine, Ray, I quit. He looked shocked and stammered he would need 2 weeks' notice so he could train up a new guy. Nope, as you just said, I am casual and can be fired without notice or penalty. I can also quit without notice or penalty. Enjoy the nights. Ray tried to call my bluff, but I just went home. He called less than an hour later, essentially begging me to not quit. Stopped short of an apology though. As I liked the hours and job, I decided to stay anyway. A week later, Ray wanted me to go permanent. I said no.